Thank you, Linda. And it's getting a little bigger, isn't it? That's maybe by September we'll have a full church again. How does that sound? Good to have all of you here worshiping with us as well online. And it's just, my goodness, Adam, had no idea. It's just been wonderful. Let's show our appreciation again. Actually, I did have an idea, but it's been amazing working with you this week again. I hope we get to do this more often. So I tell you a little story. I talk to my dad most every day. He lives in Sioux City now. He was here for a little while with Mom before Mom passed away, and he landed back in Sioux City, and as events occurred, he actually ended up back in his home, which, given coronavirus, is probably the perfect place for him. Probably the nursing home would be the absolute worst place for him to be right now, because I wouldn't even ever get to see him. At least now I get a chance to visit once in a while. But we talk most every day on the telephone, and yesterday we were on the phone again, and sometimes he just sort of gets off and starts reminiscing about the old days before I was born. And I absolutely love hearing these stories. They really come to me in two forms. Most of the time, they're stories that I've heard 1,000 times before, and they are just like a well-worn blanket to me, and I just wrap myself in them because they're just such wonderful stories. But then once in a while, I'll hear something that I've never heard before, and that's what happened yesterday. And either it's one of those deals where the story comes and, okay, now I can put this piece together with that piece, or, as it was in this case, it really got me to thinking about something more important and bigger. So he was talking about his grandmother, my great-grandmother, on his mom's side, and the relationship, the friendship that she had with Dad's dad, my grandfather. And it was a friendship. Evidently, every Sunday in the afternoon, after church, after dinner, they would pile in the car and they would go from Morningside out to the north side where Grandma lived. And they would spend the afternoon there. This great-grandma, excuse me. And my grandfather, Dad's dad, absolutely loved going up there every single Sunday, because they would sit down and have a little coffee, and after a little bit, they would start debating politics. My grandfather and my great-grandmother started debating politics, and he absolutely loved it. Now, let me say that again. It was a family gathering, and they loved to debate politics. Got that? My grandfather was a die-hard Republican. My great-grandmother, was a New Deal Democrat. Y'all know what that means, right? And they would go at it, and they both loved it. And Sunday afternoon would turn into Sunday evening, and they would say their goodbyes, and they would wait for the next weekend when they get to start up where they left off. That sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it? I mean, my goodness. That doesn't happen much anymore. Not at all. We are so invested in being right that we cut those kinds of things off. And I will tell you that it's not because the issues are bigger now than they were then, or more important now than they were then, because all of this was happening during the Great Depression. And of course, you know what comes right on the heels of the Great Depression, right? World War II. The world is first smoldering, and then when the war comes, it turns into open flame. So the issues were just as big and just as monumental and just as important then as they were now, and maybe even more so. No, something important has disappeared. We are so invested in being right. We have to be so right that we cut each other off. It's no longer conversation. It's who can shout the loudest. And the one who can shout the loudest and longest wins. Watch the news if you can. I can't anymore. I think about my own life personally and the way I treat others. And something important has disappeared. Our friendships. We mute our Facebook friends because their opinions are too strong. We get in our social circles. And we carefully avoid certain subjects. And I have to wonder, isn't there a better way? Dan, would you please sing for us?
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home.
So, today we're talking about the conversion of St. Paul. We're in this series in the book of Acts, and this is probably one of the better known stories in the book of Acts. It comes from Acts chapter 9. And conversion of Saul, we know him as Paul. And Paul is, for Christians, I mean, he, aside from Jesus himself, the most important Christian who has ever walked the planet. You take a look at your New Testament, and Paul wrote half of everything that we have about the Christian faith. And frankly, because of his work, none of us would probably be here today or out there watching without Paul. Christianity would have been this insignificant portion, this sect of Judaism that probably would not only not flourish, but probably would have just faded away into the background. That's how important Paul is. But we need to know something about him first. We need to understand his journey to get there. So when most of us think about a great religious leader, like a Paul or a Saul, we would look at his life and say, that's it. Now, this is his life before he encounters Jesus and Jesus gets hold of him. He is the ultimate religious insider. He's a Pharisee, which means that in his day and time, he was very well respected. And he was the best of the Pharisees. He was brilliant. He was well educated. He was born to the right family. He studied with all the right teachers. He became this self-made man. He had all the opportunities that anyone could ever want in the world, and he took full advantage of all of them. He was a self-made man, and as such, he was a respected member of his community. The kind of religious leader that everyone would think, well, that's who I want to follow. He was also, as such, a defender of God and a protector of the faith. And this is where it gets a bit dark. Because as such, he could determine who was inside and who was outside. He was in the perfect position to do that. He knew his scriptures inside out. He'd studied it so well. And then he could take those scriptures that he knew so well and what he had learned about them and set it next to you, or you, or you, and next to your life, and he could say, okay, you have this disease, this infirmity, so you're unclean. and you live in a certain way that is not in accordance with what I learned about the Scriptures, and you need to be corrected. And you're living the right kind of life, so you belong in the temple with me. And Paul could make these judgments, and that's what he did. He would probably, as a for instance, see the man in chapter 4 that we studied a couple of weeks ago, this lame man who was sitting outside the door of the temple. Do you remember this story? We're talking about it. And this man was sitting outside the door of the temple, and he was lame. He couldn't move. They had to carry him to the door so that he could beg. Paul was in the temple every day. No doubt he saw this man, walked right by him, probably, in accordance with the law, tossed him a couple of coins to make sure he's okay. Paul goes in to pray, understanding that this man will never be in here. He'll never get further than the door. Or had Paul bumped into the Ethiopian eunuch that we talked about last week, he could, in an instant, tell you exactly why this man would never be near to God. The Ethiopian eunuch was there to worship that God. And Paul could say, you're only going to get so far. Paul could take a look at your life, and he could tell you if you were right or if you were wrong, if you were clean or you were unclean, if you were inside or you were outside. He could take a look at what you believe, and he could set that against the Scriptures, and he could say, you know, we've got some correcting to do here. We need to fix your thinking about God. And so he could do that, which is why he so hated these followers of the way, these people who were following this man, Jesus. Because not only was their thinking messed up, it didn't match the Scriptures as he knew them, but they were starting to lead others in that same misguided direction. And Paul was so absolutely certain that he was correct about this and that they were wrong. When the leadership went to murder Stephen, there was Paul, holding their coats. And then he went to the religious leadership with a plan. I'm going to go to Damascus. I'm going to round up the Christians. I'm going to tie their hands and bring them back to Jerusalem where we can throw them in jail. Paul knew his Scriptures well. He had studied them well. He knew what was right and what was wrong. And right is right. Right? And now we get to the story, which you may know, the conversion of Paul. He is, in every way, the perfect religious leader. He is, in fact, so perfect that he has lost the real purpose of what his faith was all about. It's no mistake that he was hit by a blinding light on that road to Damascus. Because, truth be told, Paul's been blind for a long, long time. He didn't see people. Oh, yeah, he saw what they did, who they were, how they didn't fit, how they didn't belong, how they were not good enough. But he didn't see people. And that word, that Scripture that he knew so well, yeah, he knew it inside and out. But he didn't know God's heart of love. A love that extended to every single person who otherwise did not belong. And isn't it ironic? Here is a God who loves you so much for your flaws. And Paul, who knows it all, who has judged you to be imperfect and not right, he is more lost than the people he's judging. Because for all of his pedigree and all of his religious knowledge, he was missing one ingredient. The ingredient called love. And once that piece fell into place for Paul, everything that he was up to that point, everything that he endeavored to be, all of the years of work and effort and study to become this person of importance and prominence, was just a house of cards. Adam, please sing.
When my way grows drear, precious longing go near. When my life is almost gone, hear my cry, hear my call. All my endless I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home.
So this story is called The Conversion of St. Paul. And conversion, it's a word that means to altogether turn. So you're heading in one direction. You think that you know everything. You think you have all the right answers and everyone is wrong. You are so certain of this. But then something happens along the way to show you that you're really not seeing a thing. And you altogether turn and head in a different direction. You thought you knew the truth, but you find that there's a greater purpose. You thought you understood the world and the way the world is. You find that you don't see a thing. I think about that as I think about our life together. And like I said earlier, I think about my relationships and the way I like to be right all the time. I think about our life as a community. And I'm watching the news, and like I said, it's hard to watch because we are so fixed on being right that we have forgotten important things. And let me ask you this. Is it more important to be right or to be in a relationship? Is it more important to fix people or simply to love them? My friends, we are heading for a cliff. And we're so fixed on being right and so fixated on fixing them that we're going to drive right off the edge. Conversion is what we need. Something from the outside, a blinding light that shows us an ingredient that we've been missing, and it puts everything else into perspective. That's what we need. An altogether turnaround from where we're heading. And it won't happen as a change of attitude. And it won't happen because we're good people. We are good people. But it's not going to happen because of that. It's got to come from outside of us. It's got to come from a place higher and wider and deeper than who we are and what we are capable of doing. This is a religious revolution that I'm talking about. A faith journey that turns our world upside down, that converts, altogether turns us in a new direction and brings that missing ingredient called the love of Jesus. While I was getting ready for this sermon, I found a clip from a very old movie, 1997, if that's old. That's what, 23 years? Called Good Will Hunting. And, I don't want to get too deep into the storyline, but I just thought that this particular scene, these two men sitting next to each other, and the younger man, the Matt Damon character, has just before this just ripped this guy's life apart, looked at the painting and just ripped him to shreds. And because the Matt Damon character is right, he's brilliant, he's smart, he knows. Let's watch this.
You're just a kid. You don't have the faintest idea what you're talking about.
Why, thank you.
It's all right. You've never been down to Boston.
Nope.
So if I asked you about art, you'd probably give me the skinny on every art book ever written. Michelangelo. I know a lot about him. Life's work, political aspirations, human hope. But you can't tell me what it smells like in the Sistine Chapel. You never actually stood there and looked up at that beautiful ceiling. Seen that. I ask you about war, you probably throw Shakespeare at me, right? Once more into the breach, dear friends. But you've never been near one. You've never held your best friend's head in your lap and watched him gasp his last breath, looking to you for help. I ask you about love, probably quote me a sonnet. But you never looked at a woman and been totally vulnerable. Known someone that could level you with her eyes. Feeling like God put an angel on earth just for you. Who could rescue you from the depths of hell. And you wouldn't know what it's like to be her angel. To have that love for her be there forever. Through anything. Through cancer. And you wouldn't know about sleeping and sitting up in a hospital room for 2 months, holding her hand, because the doctors could see in your eyes that the terms visiting hours don't apply to you. You don't know about real loss, because that only occurs when you love something more than you love yourself. I doubt you ever dare to love anybody that much. I look at you, I don't see an intelligent, confident man. I see a cocky, scared kid. But you're a genius, so no one denies that. No one could possibly understand the depths of you. But you presume to know everything about me because you saw a painting of mine and you ripped my life apart. You're an orphan, right? Do you think I know the first thing about how hard your life has been, how you feel, who you are? Because I read all of the twist. Does that encapsulate you?
The Robin Williams character goes on from there to say, I can know everything about you that I didn't know and read it in a book, but I don't care about that stuff. I could be right about everything, just like you were right about me. I don't care. But tell me about you, and then I'm all in. So what are you going to do, Robin Williams says to him. It's your move, Chief. Think about the people you live with and how you need to be right. Think about the world around us and the way we are driving off of a cliff. And everyone's right. If you don't believe it, just ask them. Isn't there a better way? Isn't there a blinding light? Isn't there a Jesus who comes to show us that it's not about being right. It's about that missing ingredient called love. So let me ask you as well. What are you going to do about it? It's your move, Chief.